Hello everyone, and in today's video, I'll be teaching you guys on how to use custom states in Bubble. So what is custom states? States are variables where we can assign a value to. So for example, right here, we happen to have two components right here, which is a on-off component and also another component called counter. So these two components have their own specific functionality. So for example, the first one right here, which says on and off. So right here, when we click button called click, and then you guys can see right here, this particular value that used to be no, now it become yes, and then I can just like switch it from on to off right here. And yeah, this is a simple example on how are we able to make use of states to achieve this particular component. And we also happen to have another component right here called counter. So when you click on plus button right here, we are able to find the number increases by 1 every single time when we click on this plus button right here. And also, as you can see right here, when you click on the minus button, we are able to reduce or decrease the number by 1 as well. So how are we able to do this? Is that we are making use of states. And why are we using states? Is that we don't need to store any value in our database to achieve this particular changes in this particular variable right here. As you can see right here, this particular state is meant for number. And this particular state at the top right here is going to be a boolean, or you can say yes or no. So I'd like to walk you guys through on how I was able to do this. And let's get started. Do you have a great idea for a startup and you're unsure on how to turn your idea into a working product? I have a great news for you. I'm offering a free one-to-one consultation to dive into your startup and discuss how you can kickstart your startup with no-code tools such as Bubble, Webflow, or even Glide. I'll also be offering development guidance for your MVP. All you have to do, drop me an email and schedule a call. More details are in the description below. So, are you ready to supercharge your startup? Like, subscribe, and most importantly, book your consultation. Now, back to the video. Now, as you can see right here, I happen to have a blank Bubble project. So first of all, the first thing I want to start with is I want to click on this particular index page right here. When I double click on the index page right here, I'll be able to have the editor options right here. So the first thing is that you must be able to click on this particular eye icon right here. This is where we'll be able to store all the states of a particular page right here. So as you can see right here, when I click on this particular eye icon, we must be able to see, we can create states right here. So as you can see right here, we can have like a new custom state right here. Let's create one. And of course, let's give it a name. For example, the example that we gave was a counter. So we'll have to give a counter. And this counter is going to be in number because that's what we're going to be adding a value to, because we need to be increasing the value of the counter by 1. So that's why we need to have the other type to be number. So let's create number. And there you go. Right now, we happen to have our first state called number. So we must also assign a default value to this particular state. For example, let's say if we put 0, and that 0 actually will be the initial value of our state whenever we refresh the page. So let's close this particular state right here. And let's see that particular state's value first. For example, of course, let's display the value of the counter. So in this case, we must say the page name right here. In this case, we have assigned it to index. Index is the page name that we have assigned that particular counter to. So in this case, let's say index. And as you can see right here, we happen to have custom states called counter. So let's click on counter. So let's make this particular element to align to center. Let's give it a check in our preview. And there you go. As you can see right here, we happen to find the value 0 right here. So as you can see, I'd like to just make it a bit more bigger. And this should do. I think that will be eventually the value that we are supposed to have. The next thing is that I would like to add a button. This is a button right here. I could place it right here. Just align this button to the center. And in this case, I like to say add. This button is where I can make use to increase the value of the state. So how will I be able to increase the value of this particular state by 1? Is that I need to click on add workflow. And in our add workflow right here, I can click on click here to add an action. And the next thing is that I must look for element actions. And of course, you are going to have set state right here. So let's click on it. So we must look for that particular element that has the custom state. Of course, the element is the index page and custom state is counter. And since it's an add button, I like to add the value of the counter by 1. So of course, I must call the particular indexes counter, and I must be adding it by 1. So add 1 right here. So as you can see, once we have done this, we must be able to have the particular button. That button must be able to add the value of the index right here. This is how I was able to do, like in the example I've given earlier. So I can also have another button, and these two buttons can be placed in the same row like this. And of course, this sits in the same row. I will make them align to center. And of course, since I've aligned to center, I must be, I will have the button to be coming first before the counter right here. So as you can see, this is the copy right here. I like to change the name to minus like this. So minus would be eventually would be having the same, almost the same workflow. So in this case, for minus, I must be able to reduce the value right here. So I must go use the same way how I done. So it was set state, index, indexes counter, and of course again indexes counter minus 1. And that's way I'll be able to have the particular counter to be reduced by 1, right? This of course negative value, and of course when you add 1, we're able to have positive value. And that's the simple way how we're able to make use of custom states for counters. And the next thing is that I can also have a different type of counter where we can say yes or no. And that way we're able to have like a one button switch where you can go from yes to no and vice versa. And that's the next thing. So I must be making them this component into one group first. So I will group them in row container and just assign them like this. That is align to center. Just make them to be placed in the center like this. And the next thing is that I have to have another state right here. So I must go back to the index. So inside index, I must be adding another custom state. So in that custom state, it's going to be called, let us say it's a switch, because switch has a positive and a negative side. So that's what I'll be doing. So in this case, I have to make use of yes or no data type right here. And let's say if I were to create this, and you also happen to have a default value right here, we can set it to no, because that's what we usually have. And let's have another text box right here. In this case, I will take this and place it right here. And this time it's going to be the same way how I'll say index like this. And just make sure to align them to the center, right? Switch instead. So once we have make use of switch, we must be able to have that particular 0 right here, supposed to be no here. So we must be able to have a particular button as well. Let's say I would have another button, just like basic this. And this button, let's also place the button in the same row as this. And of course, let's just like align the buttons to the center of the screen like this. And of course, the button should be aligned to the center right here. And the button should come first. And there you go. So right now, I must be able to have this particular button, which is called button on and off. So this particular on and off button should trigger this particular workflow to change the value from on to off and vice versa. So how will I be able to do that is that I must be going to add workflow. And of course, in this time, I was using the same thing, which is element actions, set state, and of course, index again, switch this time. And this time, I shouldn't be using the index right here, because I'll just like to use the value either yes or no. So in this case, we happen to have yes and no right here. So let's say if it was the first time I'm using, so since the value will be 0, the opposite of no would be yes. So as you can see right here, we must be changing to the value. It should depend on the value that we changed right here. So example right here, since it was no, now it is yes. But what if it was yes? So we must switch it back to no. So as you can see right here, we need to change the value to yes. And how about no? And we must be making a condition to check only if the particular value of switch is no, then we're able to run this particular yes function. So we must put a condition right here in here, where only when the index switch is no, and then we're able to run this yes trigger. So I can make a copy of this, and for the vice versa. So let's copy this and paste it right here. And for the vice versa, we must be making sure to make the values to be opposite. In this case, if it's we can just say yes. And same goes to its workflow. We must say no instead of yes. Okay, so let's have a refresh. So as you can see right here, initially it is no. So when I click it for the first time, it must change to yes. And now it is yes. We must switch it back to no. So as you can see right here, the initial value is no, which means it's off. So we must be able to click on the button to make it on. So as you can see right here, now it is yes. So that's how it works. So we must also make it back to off, or we can say no. example, let's say click on this. So it becomes no. So that's the way how we wanted it to be working. So that it will become positive to negative and vice versa, or yes to no and vice versa. And there you go. Right now, you have actually learned on how to make use of custom states in bubble.io. And I hope that you have learned something new and you're able to use it in your project as well. So thanks for watching. Let's catch up on our next one.